Over 1,000 suspects, more than 400 victims, and a quiet English village where the tea is always hot and someone is always one bad flower show result away from committing murder. Midsomer Murders has been running for over 25 years, and what's been hiding behind those thatched cottages this whole time will genuinely surprise you. Stay with us, because secret number 4 nearly destroyed the show entirely. Secret number 1, Midsomer doesn't exist.
Welcome, one and all, to the Midsummer Abbess May Fair.
Here's something that will change the way you watch the show. Midsomer County, the apparently inexhaustible source of picturesque villages and gruesome deaths, is not a real place. It was invented for the show, and its geography has never been consistent across its run. The filming locations are stitched together from across the Chilterns, Buckinghamshire, Oxfordshire and Hertfordshire. Sometimes a single village in an episode is assembled from 3 or 4 completely different real locations filmed days apart. The church in one scene is 40 miles from the pub in the next. Production designers have spoken about the elaborate continuity work required to make these patchwork locations feel coherent. Matching light, matching foliage, matching the angle of shadows so that cuts between places 30 miles apart feel like cuts between rooms in the same building. What this means is that the Midsomer viewers have built in their minds a coherent, mappable, knowable county exists nowhere except in the edit suite. The show understood something fundamental. The idea of an English village is more powerful than any actual English village. So it built an imaginary one, stitched it together from dozens of real ones, and made it feel more real than any of them ever could. Secret number 2, the death count is insane.
Miss Malfrey saw you leave Alan's house at 10 past midnight.
We had a drink, a chat.
Brace yourself for this one, because the numbers are genuinely staggering. Midsomer County has, across more than 20 series, accumulated a body count so extreme that researchers have actually calculated, and we're not making this up, that if Midsomer were a real county of comparable size, its murder rate would be roughly 100 times higher than any actually existing location on Earth. That includes active conflict zones, 100 times. The show is not entirely unaware of this absurdity. It has leaned into it, occasionally acknowledged it with dry self-awareness, and never once let it interfere with commissioning the next series. What this tells you about the audience is actually fascinating. And we'll come back to that in the final secret, because it explains something important about why this show refuses to die. Secret number 3. The show has a body problem.
Why are you here, Inspector?
Alan Hollingsworth. Yesterday you threatened to kill him.
Here's a dark truth the show has never publicly acknowledged. Midsomer Murders has killed off so many guest actors, recurring villagers, local doctors, vicars, farmers, antique dealers, that the pool of recognisable British character actors willing to appear has quietly become a running industry joke. Being cast in Midsomer is known in certain circles as receiving a death sentence, because the statistical likelihood of your character surviving the episode is genuinely low. More troublingly, the show has over the years recycled actors in entirely different roles across series. The same face turning up as a new victim in a new village, sometimes only a few years apart, quietly hoping that audiences won't connect the two appearances. Most don't. Some absolutely do, and the online communities dedicated to spotting these repetitions are both dedicated and merciless. The production has never commented on the practice directly, which is itself rather Midsomer. A secret hiding in plain sight in a show built entirely around secrets that were always hiding in plain sight.
It's just words. Eat the moment stuff.
That's when most murders occur.
Secret number 4. The scandal that almost killed it.
But that doesn't begin to prove that Billy Gurdy didn't kill the tramp.
I didn't say it did.
I'm relieved to hear it.
This is the one that nearly ended everything. And if you don't know this story, it is genuinely shocking. In 2011, the show's then producer, Brian May, gave a newspaper interview in which he described Midsomer Murders as the last bastion of Englishness, and openly defended the show's near-total absence of non-white characters as a deliberate creative decision. The reaction was immediate, national, and severe. True May was suspended within days. An investigation was launched by the production company. The story led news bulletins and dominated television coverage for weeks. He subsequently left the production entirely and never returned. The controversy forced an explicit public reckoning with something that had been quietly implicit for over a decade: that the overwhelmingly white world of Midsomer was not an accident, but a choice. The show responded with a gradual and ongoing diversification of its cast, but the damage to its reputation took considerably longer to repair. Secret number 5, the replacement gamble.
Jones, dear boy.
Mrs. Wingate.
And who's this?
DCI Barnaby.
Why didn't they give the job to this chap?
When John Nettles left after Series 13, the decision to replace him with Neil Dudgeon as DCI John. Barnaby, a cousin of the original character, same surname, entirely different man, was almost universally regarded as a desperate compromise that would accelerate the show's inevitable decline. Recasting the lead of a long-running procedural is hard enough. Doing it with a character who shares the name but none of the history is the kind of creative decision that tends to collapse under the weight of audience resistance and critical skepticism. Dudgeon knew exactly what he was walking into. He has spoken openly about the scale of the doubt he faced, not just from viewers but from within the industry, and about the very specific pressure of playing a character whose name alone carried 20 years of audience loyalty that belonged to someone else entirely. What nobody predicted, and what makes this one of the more surprising turnaround stories in British television, was just how well it worked. Dudgeon found something in John Barnaby that was distinct enough to feel genuinely his own while remaining consistent with the world the show had built. The audience, faced with the alternative of no show at all, proved far more adaptable than anyone had dared hope. He is now quietly approaching the length of tenure that made Nettles irreplaceable. History, it seems, is repeating itself. Secret number 6, the real crimes behind the locations.
Yes, same as the other victim, strangulation. Whoever did it had to dismember her to get her into the basket. Hence the blood, a lot of blood.
Here's something the tourist brochures definitely don't mention. Several of the picturesque villages used as Midsomer filming locations have, over the years, been the scenes of real and deeply disturbing crimes, murders, violent assaults, and high-profile criminal cases that unfolded in the same streets and greens where Barnaby solves his fictional ones. The overlap between the show's carefully constructed image of idyllic English village life and the reality of what sometimes happens in those same places is uncomfortable in a way that goes beyond irony. Production teams arriving to film in locations that have recently experienced genuine tragedy have had to navigate that tension carefully and quietly. The show has never drawn attention to these parallels. To do so would undermine the fundamental fantasy it is selling. But they exist, and the gap between Midsommer's England and the real one is, in these cases, considerably narrower than anyone involved would prefer. Secret number 7. It's bigger abroad than at home.
Did Peter Slim ask you to copy Devereux's bank statements?
We wanted proof.
Of what?
That Devereux was cheating on the duty.
This one surprises almost everyone. Midsomer Murders is broadcast in over 200 countries and territories, making it one of the most widely distributed British television exports of the last 3 decades. And in several of those markets, it draws audiences that are proportionally larger than anything it achieves in the UK. In Germany, it has been a ratings phenomenon for years. In Australia, Scandinavia, and parts of Asia, it commands devoted followings that the domestic audience, which tends to take the show slightly for granted, would find extraordinary. What the show exports is not just a murder mystery format, but a specific, deeply seductive vision of England. Honey-coloured stone, village greens, eccentric locals, and a landscape of impossible beauty in which terrible things happen with comfortable regularity. For hundreds of millions of international viewers, Midsomer is England. The gap between that image and the actual country is a gap the show has never found it necessary to close. Secret number 8. It's a show about class, not crime.
Diana,
We need to find 2 people who were missing from the battle area.
Well, I'll keep checking videos of the event.
Here's the dark secret that critics have been circling for years, but the show itself has never admitted. It's really a crime drama. It is a fantasy of English class anxiety dressed up in a detective format. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Look at who gets murdered in Midsomer. It is almost always the wealthy, the powerful, the landowners, the people who have controlled the village for generations. And look at why they are murdered. It is almost always because of inheritance. Disputed property, old money, old grudges, secrets buried in the social hierarchy of the English countryside that have been festering for decades and finally, inevitably, turn lethal. The show is, underneath its cosy Sunday evening surface, a weekly dramatisation of the violence that hides inside privilege and entitlement. Every single murder is, at its root, a story about what people will do to protect or obtain status, wealth, and land. The English countryside has never been peaceful. It has always been a battleground for resources and power dressed up in very pleasant scenery. Midsomer knows this. It says so episode after episode in the only language it allows itself. A body on the village green and a detective who always patiently follows the money. Secret number 9. The murder methods are planned in meetings.
Apprehending bees isn't part of my job description.
It is now.
Bees are being targeted for theft.
Specialist bees and their honey.
This is the detail that reveals something both wonderful and slightly alarming about the people who make this show. Across more than 20 series, Midsomer victims have been killed by crossbow, beehive, maypole, vintage car, church bell, ferret, lawnmower, poison jam, a falling gargoyle, and an array of agricultural implements that suggest the English countryside is one enormous, unregulated weapons depot. None of this happens by accident. The writing team meets regularly, in what must be one of the more unusual creative sessions in British television, specifically to brainstorm new and plausible murder methods. The challenge, they have explained in interviews, is not just novelty, but internal logic. The method must be believable within the world of the show, which means believable in a village where everyone has secrets, and the most dangerous thing in any room is usually the person who looks most harmless. It requires, they admit, a particular cast of mind. We will leave it at that. Secret number 10. Why it never gets old.
When exactly did you arrive back in the village?
A couple of nights ago.
25 years, over 130 episodes, 2 lead actors, 1 national scandal, and a body count that defies all statistical possibility. And it is still running, still drawing audiences, still selling to 200 countries. So here is the question that actually matters. Why? The answer is simpler than you might expect, and it explains something true about what audiences actually want from television. Midsomer Murders offers something almost no other drama on television will give you: complete, guaranteed, unconditional resolution. You know going in that a body will be found, that Barnaby will investigate, that the village will crack open and reveal its secrets, and that order will be restored before the credits roll. No cliffhangers, no ambiguity, no loose ends left deliberately fraying. In a television landscape that increasingly rewards complexity and punishes satisfaction, Midsomer's absolute commitment to tidiness is not a limitation. It is the entire product. And 25 years of audience loyalty is proof that the product, however unfashionable, is exactly what a very large number of people have always needed.